Hey, there's some stuff going on there, including an M-class flare. That and much more happening. Here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, it's the final space weather video. Not the final one ever, just the final one of the year, folks. We've got some musical accompaniment. Let's blast through some more spectacular imagery. So there's an M-class flare and a coronal mass ejection. Expect more. New sunspot has formed down here in the southeast. This is the colorized magnetogram from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. This original music, by the way, available in the links below the video. Soundclick.com/GoldenCatProductions. Solar flare warning and coronal mass ejection warning stay in place. Here's some spectacular activity setting here in the southwest as well. Lots more to talk about on today's video. Also, we caught a crazy green sprite here. You can see right around here there's a 94 angstrom hot spot there happens. One of the many ionized states of iron that is covered. It's ultraviolet light from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Here's the full disk view, and you can see that M-class flare right at the end of the video happening just a few hours before we recorded this. Radio flux all the way down to 102. And there's the 1-year graph of the radio flux to put it in context. The black line is the radio flux, the red line is the sunspot number. Here's a space weather enthusiast dashboard expecting a little bit of geomagnetic unrest on the 2nd of January from a coronal hole wind stream. Global seismicity, no quakes over a 6 magnitude, it looks like. There was a 5.4 north of Australia there in the Molucca Sea. Some Alaskan quakes, some quakes in the U.S., including a South Carolina one. Nothing too exciting happening. Some quakes here north of New Zealand as well, in the Kermadec Islands region near the Kermadec Trench, south of the Tongan Trench. Also a mid-Atlantic quake, this one here at Papua New Guinea, nearly 100 kilometers. A couple of 5s here on different sides of the world. So there's the mid-Atlantic ridge quake. That must be near the Azores. Then here's this one at New Caledonia. Those occurring only 8 minutes apart there. 2 5.0 magnitude quakes occurring at only 8 minutes time interval from each other. Again, no major quakes here. Keep in mind, any quake can be a foreshock, folks. Any quake can be a foreshock. Next, volcanoes. If you want to know what's erupting, here's the list. Subodose-jima, flight level 060. It's a 6,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Semeru, also exploding. 19,000-foot ash plume over East Java from Semeru. Fuego, flight level 150. It's exploding as well. Sangay also exploding. Flight level 190. 19,000-foot plume of ash over Ecuador from Sangay. 16,000-foot plume of ash over Ecuador from Revenador. So 2 volcanoes happening in Ecuador here. Sabancaya also exploding. 23,000-foot ash plume from Sabancaya over Peru and Nevados de Chilean. 13,000-foot ash plume over central Chile from Nevados de Chilean. If you'd like to support the channel, pick up a bike. Do you own a bicycle? Now, personally, I'm not into building bikes. I'm into building riders. So keep in mind, folks, we're not competition for your local shop. We order stuff to your local shop and we bring business in, namely you. It won't cost you anything extra to use my expertise to shop for a bike. As long as you buy a bike through me, I'll be your personal bike expert. Links below the video to that as well. Also links to the Smash team. And we'll continue putting up free publicly visible posts through the old year, thanks to our gold and silver paid up subscribers. Exclusive content coming tomorrow. Also, if you'd like to check out some merch, links to that on the homepage at smashamash.com as well as below the video. These are in order of best selling. And today's featured product is the Forgive, Remember, Hold Accountable product. Thanks to our viewer who picked up one of those shirts. We're waiting for your photo. We'll feature it on the channel. Here are some of the products you can get. Yeah, fuchsia and hot pink, Forgive, Remember, and Hold Accountable. It's got a graphic of the Earth and a nonogram and the Milky Way Galaxy. Milky Way Galaxy team for the win. Forgive, Remember, and Hold Accountable. Tell your friends and foes about it. It's a little bit of wisdom there to wear on your clothes, perhaps, or maybe on your shower curtain. Cheers. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Again, links at the homepage. It's a rabbit hole. Who thought we'd be talking about the underlying mechanisms for the solar cycles? Oftentimes in science, we end up with answers to questions not asked. Remember, folks, the magnetic environment can suddenly change, and it has once again as a new sunspots formed. Anyway, here's the GOES magnetometer. Fairly uneventful here in the past 24 hours. Earth is in a North Pole current sheet. You can see it here in green on the top view ecliptic plane field plot data. That's the National Sunspot Observatory polarized light data there determining magnetic fields. So North Pole current sheet, you can see it in here in green. South Pole current sheet on the other side as solar cycle 25 continues to progress. Here's the line of sight view. Nothing too exciting going on there. Coronal hole view a little bit more interesting here as we've got some trans-equatorial North Pole oriented coronal holes here. You see these green areas. Those are part of the solar polar field reversal process. The blue lines are the sun's B field. I'll let it play through one more time before we start to show more imagery from the SDO. Here's 193 angstroms. Let's go back a couple of days. You can see the progression of additional coronal holes and the one that's just moving through the earthly zone there. And that's the most recent. And again, we're expecting a brief period of geomagnetic unrest from that. Let's take a look at sunspots. Again, a new one has formed back here. I don't even think it shows up on this imagery yet. Coronal mass ejection and solar flare warning continue. We only call those coronal mass ejection warnings for the earthly zone. We'll talk about that more in a moment. First, flare probability very high. And we could still see flares from 2918 as well as from 2916. I think this new one's going to be 2922. This one right here is now a sunspot, or at least it was during show prep. Oh, here's today's imagery. Right on. There we go. There's that new sunspot forming. I think it's going to be a beta class. We'll show the high-res imagery at the end. Here's this M-class flare that has generated a coronal mass ejection. We'll show that toward the end of the video. And we haven't seen any relativistic particles show up yet. The peak flux of that M-class flare was at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock universal time, maybe a hair before that. No spikes in the proton flux yet, and the coronal mass ejection does not appear to be Earth-directed. We'll show you the imagery after we show you the real-time solar wind, which is unremarkable over the past 24. We see a subsiding of the coronal hole high-speed stream. Current solar wind 447 kilometers a second. Solar wind density 5.8 protons per cubic centimeter. KP index at 1, geomagnetism calm. Here's the last 4 hours of Earth's geospace from space. A model of the likely magnetohydrodynamic pressure environment, modeled in nanopascals. Again, nothing too exciting going on here in the last 4 hours. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. This one is measured in, or it's modeled rather, in nanotesla. If you want to read more about where the model comes from, go to either Geospace Magnetosphere Movies page, click on Details, and click on the Space Weather Modeling Framework. You can read all about it. It uses a lot of variables. Here are some variables of what's going on in the solar system. We'll give you a 1-week forecast. Ding, there's tomorrow. The first day of a new era. And there's where things will be in a week. As Venus swings past, we could expect some great imagery of Venus to be coming out, some great crescent Venus imagery, and so on. If you're up before dawn, you may see the moon and Mars rising ahead of the sun. This is our star chart for Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, where we are located, Smash Staff and I. The only two people behind this operation. Next, some coronagraph imagery from Stereo A and the SOHO LASCO C2. Again, there is a coronal mass ejection that was generated at the same time as that solar flare, that M-class flare that we showed earlier. Indeed did cause some ejecta to leave the sun, and it looks like it's going to miss Earth to the southwest. If I had to guess, it's not fully done propagating yet, I don't think. And for you new viewers, we forecast coronal mass ejections only for this side of the sun, not for this side. Occasionally we do forecast them for the far side, but from the perspective of Stereo A, Earth would be off in this direction. From the perspective of the LASCO C2, the Earth would be behind you. So again, this is where they're located. Lagrange point 1 is where this is located. The LASCO SOHO C2. Stereo A located out here at Lagrange 5. The Stereo A coronagraph. Today's cosmology segment's integrated into the daily space weather video. It's going to be brief. So let's blast through. First of all, it's a bird. It's a plane. It's not either. It's the James Webb Space Telescope. There it is, speeding out to Lagrange point 2, where it will get some very, very detailed infrared imagery. Let's pick a random number here at the Neil Gehrels Swift-Bat X-ray Observer. By the way, that's the astronomy picture of the day. apod.nasa.gov. Little animated star field for you featuring the James Webb Telescope streaking past. Today's random number, I don't know how random it is, 771, is a weird object. It's only bright in a very small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. It does seem to be an X-ray source, as you can see here. And it's gone into actually a quiescent state here. It's gone into a wider range here, higher highs and lower lows of X-ray output. And lately it's been quiescent for the past 30 days for the most part. This is a low-mass X-ray binary / neutron star, again number 771. And this is where it's located in the Milky Way. It's a pretty busy part of the galaxy, folks. There are a lot of dust lanes there, and it's a little bit deceptive. So here it is in radio frequency. There's a view of the Milky Way galaxy in radio. You can see the large and small Magellanic clouds there. And as we zoom in, it's dark in practically every band. So there's not going to be a lot to show you here, folks. I would bring up different portions of the infrared spectrum. But it's very bright and ultraviolet. There's actually part of the infrared spectrum showing up. It looked like a signal. I'm just pretty much clicking on random stuff there. Got a pretty busy part of the Milky Way galaxy. Not right on the plane, but close to it. So here's a pretty highly detailed infrared survey. And we'll zoom way in and see if we can see a signal at the point of this crosshair. And not really. It's pretty cold there. Pretty cold. But it is certainly emitting ultraviolet. Here's another pretty detailed infrared spectra. The 2 mass. And we view the 2 mass regularly. You can see how dark it is around that region in practically every band. Certainly in optical as well. Let's see if we can bring up some optical bands here. It's going to be dark. I can assure you of that. So here's a pretty detailed optical survey, and you can see not a lot to show up there. Pan-STARRS is one we view regularly, and it's dark on Pan-STARRS. Finally, when we switch to ultraviolet, we do see some features here. We looked at this in X-ray before we did the video as well, and there's not any sort of a signal to show up. So some interesting features there in different ultraviolet bands. Let's look at some more. And yeah, there's just a lot of hot ultraviolet emitting plasma in the area. but not a lot else. So it will not show up in X-ray. And if you look at the photometric points for this object, there's an X-ray image. You can see it's even dark in X-ray. So a very weak X-ray source. And if you look at the photometric points, it only has one photometric point. So that's today's rather dark object, located there in the Milky Way galaxy, if you're wondering. It's the low-mass X-ray binary, SAX J1806.5-2215. Today's quote random and quote cosmic object. That's today's cosmology segment. Check our playlists for more at youtube.com/smAsho/playlists. The official source of most of our videos. Let's get back to it. Quick look at charging hazards to reveal no charging hazards. Here's the electron flux over the past year. Relativistic electrons is what we're looking at next. Here's the greater than or equal to 2 mega electron volt electron flux as measured by the GOES 16 and 17, and we can see this is still cratered here. We can expect to see this rise a bit with the subsiding of the coronal hole wind stream. And you can see the forecast model here forecasting a little bit too high. Maybe they weren't expecting the coronal hole wind stream, but in any case, it wasn't a super powerful one. It wasn't super high speed or super dense at the shock wave. The green boxes are the forecast. The yellow diamonds are the observation. Next, the total electron content forecast to show you likely GPS error spots. And we're seeing a little chaos, but it's getting a little bit more orderly up there. So we can expect the electron flux to rise a little bit, and it looks like a little bit less GPS errors showing up today. I'll let it play through a second time. The redder this chart is, the more likely you are to have a GPS error. You can use Wi-Fi location services to increase the accuracy of your location services. GPS only may show some errors, usually especially around the equator at noon. Anyway, here's the ionosphere portion. The F ionosphere layer located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. One slice of the bridge between Earth and space. It's the vibrational frequency up there. We see some high-frequency anomalies there in the Southern Ocean. Certainly. Here's the anomalygram to show anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. And you can see those blue areas there in the Southern Ocean. Those are those high-frequency anomalies, and some swings also. So some swings from high to low frequency and so on. If you're not used to looking at the data, it might look like Greek. There are a lot of chemical reactions going on up there in the ionosphere layer. Anyway, here's the latest image. That's 10:30 universal time on the ionogram, 10:30 universal time on the anomalygram, and let's do bonus features. So here's your first bonus feature. It's the ground-based solar observatory at Cerro Tololo. And yeah, it looks like they haven't caught this. I don't see the filament. They've only got a little bit of data there. Let's see if El Taide's got a little bit better data. Not so good. Not so good. Anyway, here's some good data from the NASA GOES 16 SUVI, and you can see this incredible prominence from the southwest. That filament, some of it splashed back down onto the chromosphere and lower corona. Other bits of it blasted off into the solar system to the southwest of the Earth line. This does not cause the coronal mass ejection and solar flare warnings to subside. Those stay in effect until further notice. By the way, we haven't had any false alarms for about a year. Next, some close-ups. Sunspot 2916. I don't know the number of that, but it is beta class. And this one is beta class 2. That has grown since we did show prep. So that's a little bit of an increase in solar activity there. Little small increase on new sunspot forming of the beta class variety. Here are the magnetic fields. I think this one has decayed. That's barely even a sunspot. But there are the fields. Here's this new sunspot. And we'll scroll over to 2916. This trailing field has degraded a little bit, but there is still plenty of ability. That's beta gamma class. That sunspot. Solar flare and coronal mass ejection warning remain in effect. We'll be keeping an eye on this newly formed region. 2922 is, I believe, the number going to be of that one. 2922, I think, is this sunspot. It'll likely get a name today. It's already been there for quite a while. And we'll close things out with 304 angstroms ionized helium. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists, and may that solar wind be at your back all year. Opinions expressed in this video not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted, name in news.